Hi, I'm Nathan from Serious Geeks, and today's Tactica video is going to cover the Invader ATV squad for Codex Space Marines. Common internet opinion of this unit was actually quite negative. People thought it was overpowered and certainly too cheap for its points, especially as you could raise it from the dead using apothecaries. The reality, I don't really think that's the case at all, and it certainly isn't currently the case in the most competitive sense. I still think the unit is quite a good one. It's quite competitive for its points. It provides a decent amount of firepower, but there are alternatives that provide similar or better firepower for the points cost, and that's kind of where you have to go with things when you're going for a big tournament list. As a fast attack choice, its main selling point is its stat line, plus the actual fact that it's a fast attack choice. In a unit of 1 to 3, each one having a movement of 14, 3 plus weapon skill and ballistic skill, meaning that it's fairly consistent and very fast. Strength 4, where, they're essentially a bike, so it's a Space Marine. Toughness 5, it's the intercessors on there. They have toughness 5 because they're on a bike. It's tradition for all bike units to get +1 toughness. 8 wounds, which is actually really high, and 4 attacks each, which is relevant because there's 2 guys on there, each one with 2 attacks. It's the old attack bike equation. Leadership 7, 3 plus armor save. So it's a fairly survivable unit. I mean, you're looking at the same amount of wounds as a dreadnought. In fact, the stats for any anti-tank weapon, strength 6 and above, up to strength 9, against this unit versus a dreadnought is exactly the same. So it's actually a very cheap weapons platform for what you get. Small arms fire is obviously a little bit more effective against the Invader than what it is against a dreadnought, but it's still a fairly robust unit, and you don't want to be firing small arms that much at this anyway because it's toughness 5, 8 wounds. It's just a bit of a waste. You want to hit it with something a bit more substantial. So what you're getting is a unit of 1 to 3 that are actually really tough and can zoom around the battlefield very fast and put their weapons where they need to be. So on that note, let's look at the weapons. 1 bolt pistol. Feels like there should be 2. There's 2 guys on there. It should be 2 bolt pistols, but whatever. It comes with an onslaught Gatling cannon and a twin auto bolt rifle, frag and crack grenades. You're unlikely to ever use the frag and crack grenades because that means the unit or the model cannot fire its other weaponry, and why would you do that? Starting with the twin auto bolt rifle, that's actually a really good weapon. It's assault 6, strength 4, no AP, 1 damage. It's a lot of shots. You've essentially got a better storm bolter on there. Better twin bolter. You've got more shots than an attack bike would get, so it's pretty good. It's good for flak clearance, and if you have more than 1 model in the unit, you're going to get quite a lot of shots. If you've got 3, for example, that's 18 shots a turn, which is very effective at clearing out a bit of infantry. The onslaught Gatling cannon, well, it's quite a good weapon system. Heavy 8, strength 5, -1 AP. If you have multiple, you're really starting to increase how many shots you get. 2 would be 16. 3 models in the unit, you've now got 24 shots. It's a lot of firepower. A lot of DACA, as some people like to call it. My biggest flaw with this weapon system, the onslaught Gatling cannon, it's very nice, but do you really need it on an Invader? I mean, if you've got Redemptors, you've probably got access to it anyway. You've probably got lots of infantry that can carve through infantry themselves. You might have an Outrider squad. You might also have intercessors or Vanguard Space Marines. You're basically not going to be hurting for killing enemy infantry. The other weapon is a multi-melter, heavy 2, and as we know, it's got the melter abilities, which we really love. Within half range, that's 12 inches, which you can get in easily with a movement 14 unit. You get D6 plus 2 damage, which is very nice, and it's -4 AP, so most targets that you're going to be firing at are not going to get a save, and even the ones that do are only going to get a save on a 6+, and it's strength 8. Common internet logic is to go with this, but I actually don't quite agree with that anymore. Due to Eradicators being a thing and attack bikes being very competitive and cheaper as a source of melter, I just don't see an Invader really being that necessary, especially if you're taking multiple in one unit. You just don't need lots of points tied into multiple melter shots from 3 fairly robust, fast-moving targets. What you probably need is cheaper melter that can zoom about and deliver the melter like we always used to play back in previous editions anyway. For that basis, I would normally lean towards the onslaught Gatling cannon and just load up on firepower. Obviously, that doesn't mean that the melter weapon on this isn't effective. I just think that you can source it from cheaper or better sources and you'll get more bang for your buck. Anyway, quickly moving on to the abilities, we've got Angels of Death, which is kind of standard for Space Marines. It does mean they get an extra attack. It's okay, but you know, you don't want to be in assault with this unit anyway. Turbo Boost means that if they advance, they get an extra 6 inches. You're probably not going to advance, you're going to want to fire those guns, and it's fast enough to never really need it. There might be a few circumstances where you don't need to fire it. There's obscuring terrain in the way, and you need to claim an objective quite far away. On that basis, you might use it, but for the most part, you don't really need to worry about advancing with this unit. The Dark Angels would obviously adjust this to be a Raven Wing, or one of their successors would, and that's added to the keyword. That's a special rule, and it does explode. On a 6, each unit within 3 inches suffers 1 mortal wound. It's unlikely to happen. It does a moderate amount of damage. It's okay. Lastly, the keywords: Imperium Adeptus Astartes Chapter, Biker, Primaris, Invader ATV Squad. That's about it. Now, there's not really many stratagems you want to add to this unit, and they don't get much benefit from the actual characters of the army, simply because they don't have core, and the stratagems are better placed for other units such as transhuman physiology. That said, there are 2 that do actually work with this unit, but you're only really going to use one of them most likely. The first is hit and run warfare. If you're not an ultramarine, you'll probably use this if you get tied up in close combat, hence you'll never use the bolt pistols and it's irrelevant. What it means is you can fall back from close combat and still be able to shoot this turn, so it's generally the best go-to option for a unit that gets tied up in close combat, rather than just sitting there and taking the hits and being unable to do anything. The other stratagem, which I don't think is ever going to be used, is Skilled Riders. On the surface it looks quite good. If you advance, you can basically, if you're selected as a target for a ranged attack, you can incur a -1 to hit to the opponent's hit rolls, which is normally pretty good, but in this circumstances you're going to want to fire. You're paying 85 points or 80 points for this unit. You're going to be wanting to fire it each turn. It's got a lot of guns. Like I said earlier, there is an outside chance you might use this. You might want to zoom across, claim that objective, keep them alive for as long as possible, and this would be a way of doing that, but really I doubt it'll be used that much, simply because you're going to be shooting your guns. So what do I recommend when using this unit? I recommend taking the variant with all the guns, all the shots. Take those Onslaught Gatling cannons. You don't need the Melter. Melter is great and all, but that's what attack bikes are for. That's what Eradicators are for. That's what just about anyone who can take Melter other than this unit is for. Because, I mean, let's be honest, a Contemptor with a multi-melter is really threatening and moving up the table. You've got Eradicators alongside it. You might have attack bikes for the fast melter. You might even have Tactical Marines jumping out of drop pods, or Devastators jumping out of drop pods and blasting things from multi-melters. You don't really need to spend 85 points on one model that is going to have a multi-melter, when you can spend less points than that on that same weapon system. So really, you want this unit to be an objective holder that is dotting around the table and laying down a decent amount of firepower. That's pretty much its only role. If you use them as a frontline force, you'll find that they're a little bit inefficient. They don't have the core keyword. They are quite a lot of points for how much weaponry they have. They're fairly cheap. They're essentially a cheap dreadnought, but they will go under if they're on the front lines. Overall, I don't see it as a super competitive unit, but like most things in Codex Space Marines, you can get it to work and you can play competitive games with this unit and still have some good effect. One point of note, it's been FAQ'd that an apothecary cannot raise these from the dead, which is a key factor in what changed their effectiveness on the table, really. Raising an 8 wound model from the dead in a large squad of 3, it was absolutely phenomenal and people hated it. Rightfully so, I guess. Well, anyway, that is all there really is to say about the Invader. Its weapon system is very niche in that it has 1 or 2 choices, and its secondary weapons are always going to be those bolters. Is it going to be useful on every single game that you play? If you play objectives, it can be very useful, but it's not a frontline killing unit. Shouldn't be used as such because it's not as efficient and it's not going to hold up to heavy weight of attention from the opponent. That's it for me on the subject. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all soon. Peace out.